right now. All right, let me pull up my cellular device for the Sharons. Yep, it's up. I'm just going to take a nice deep breath to arrive here myself if anyone cares to join me. All right, party time. Mike, mother effing Dillard. So, first of all, I adore you tremendously, and I appreciate so much what you've started to create for people. Before we even begin, I just wanted to say that what you're creating for entrepreneurs, for business owners, to get some certainty, to take some action, and to take some consideration in pivots versus getting too emotionally reactive. So, for anyone tuning in right now, whether on video or through the podcast, this is Mentor in the Mirror podcast.
I'm Ta.
And I'm Cole.
We are Ta Cole.
This is episode 70. 70, which is awesome that numbers are getting up there a little bit now. Hey.
Yeah. So we'd like to welcome the one and only Mike Dillard to our podcast, to our broadcast, and to our audience. So this gentleman has helped us through with languaging with our business. He's helped hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs, thousands of entrepreneurs,
tens of thousands,
to really upgrade themselves, their businesses, and the services that they provide their businesses, their customers with, their clientele.
Mm-hmm.
He's unlike any person that I've ever encountered or worked with in my time working as an entrepreneur, which has been forever. And so we'd like to welcome him to the podcast. Welcome, Mike.
Yeah, thank y'all. Thank y'all for having me. I'm stoked to be here as always.
Yeah. When it comes to seeing an opportunity, right? And everyone is a little bit still in arms, making adjustments. Kids are home, have to lay off staff, like all sorts of things are happening. Where do we begin?
Yeah. You tell me where would y'all like to begin? Is this are we talking to business owners and entrepreneurs right now and how to adjust?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We are.
I would say small business. And when I say small business, like the 300 to 700K, right? So maybe they're online coaches, maybe they're, working mostly with virtual teams and trying to really sort how to find opportunity through this and survive it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is my fourth crisis that I have businessed through, if you will. 2001 was the first round. Lost my shirt, didn't know what to do. It was the first time I was an entrepreneur when 9/11 took place. Had no idea how to handle that and ended up, abandoning my business and waiting tables until, the world got back to normal a year or two later. Then the Iraq War took place. That, also came into consideration. And then the crash of 2008 happened. By then, I was a lot smarter, much more experienced. And I essentially was ready to turn a crisis into an opportunity at that point. I had changed my thinking and what I was looking for when events like this happen. And I knew that they create opportunities. So I essentially pivoted my business. I came up with a new idea for a solution to a problem that was created by the crash of 2008. Built that business in 60 days, just, from my laptop. Launched that, and we did over $3 million in revenue in our first week. With that being said, I had a large audience by that point, so that was a big part of it. But by the end of the first year, that had grown into an 8-figure business and had absolutely been embraced by the general public as the solution that they were looking for when it came to financial education. And so that was a really big lesson learned for me on how to turn crises into opportunities. And it really is it just comes down to focusing on what are the problems being created and how can I either pivot what I currently have to provide a solution to those problems, or if you have the flexibility like I did as a solo entrepreneur in 2008 to embrace and pursue a completely new idea, well, then it's a great time to do that. So the first thing that I would encourage people to do is to take care of your needs, meaning, the hierarchical levels, y'all can go through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, shelter, water, things like that. I would include health supplements and medications into that during this particular crisis, because if you're concerned about getting the medications that you might be on, if you're diabetic and you're running short on meds, or if you're on supplements and going through a health crisis and they're currently sold out, you need to get your hands on that stuff. You need to get your hands on some additional food, toilet paper, even, whatever will give you comfort. And the entire purpose of that is strategic. The purpose of that is to chill out the limbic fight or flight area of your brain so that you're not in this place of fear or scarcity like everybody else running around from supermarket to supermarket all day, so that you can chill, because now you've got your needs met for yourself and your family, and then that will allow you to relax and then start to look for opportunities to get into work and get into flow. So for me, that's always been step number one. After, I think, I don't know if it was after the crash of '08 or before then, it was after, I went and bought a ranch and a year's supply of food for my family. And I was like, this is something that I learned from some very, very wealthy mentors of mine, people who've made literally hundreds of millions of dollars. And they're all essentially strategic preppers, where they have these essentials in place so that they don't have to think about them anymore. So that's step number one. Step number two is to really identify your own confirmation bias. So the single deadliest trap that people can run into during a time like this is to make assumptions or jump to conclusions that they don't even realize they're making. And so we call this confirmation bias. And the best way to identify what yours is, because we all have one for the most part, is what's your opinion about what's happening with this crisis? Are you sure that this is going to be over in a few weeks, or are you sure that this is going to get much worse and last a year? You're usually going to be in one of two camps. You can tell that easily by the news that you've been sharing with your friends or posting on Facebook. But either of those camps, they're both wrong. They're both wrong in the fact that nobody knows what's actually going to happen. So if you think you know what is going to happen, you're wrong. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. So if that's the case, you're essentially guessing and you're gambling. And you're gambling on the future of your business and the decisions that you're going to make and the direction that you're going to go based on this confirmation or this assumption that you're making. And so the tip that I like to give folks is just pretend like you're looking at a black wall, and on the other side of that wall is the future. And if I'm like, hey, Cole, what's on the other side of that wall? Your answer is going to be, I don't know. You can guess, but at the end of the day, you really don't know. And so you want to identify the fact that you have confirmation bias and then eliminate it, right? Become aware of it so that you can eliminate it. And at that point, you've now set yourself up to not get run over by a 50-50 chance of you being right or wrong, right? At that point, you want to strategically make plans for either outcome. So I like to make plans based on event-based milestones. So I don't want to make a decision on whether or not I should downsize my team today just based on where I think this is going to go or what I think might happen. I want to make that decision based on a revenue milestone or an expense milestone that I'm seeing in my business on my books. So if my revenue drops to X amount of money, then we make these cuts. If it drops to that amount of money, then we make these cuts, right? And so the decision comes from a rational, strategic place rather than a reactionary, emotional place. The last thing you want to do is hold on to your staff longer than you should have because sales revenue has dropped. And then having to be forced to make that decision because you don't have the ability to pay them next week. That's the last place you want to end up. In fact, you want to make that decision 2 to 3 months ahead of time. We're still fairly new into this process, but if you can start to project out and set up these milestones in your business, you'll at least have them identified. The next thing you want to do is share those milestones with your team so that they can rally behind them. They're going to understand that if the company doesn't make money, you're not going to have the ability to pay them, and they don't want to lose their jobs. So they're going to do whatever they need to do to rally behind these milestones in this mission. And everybody comes together to make sure that you stay above those and that doesn't happen. So those are two of like the biggest initial pieces of advice that I can give to folks that I've learned over the years. And I see, unfortunately, 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs making both of those mistakes right now. Most of them have a confirmation bias and a very strong opinion about what's taking place and what they think is going to happen. Most of them are waiting on their hands, hoping things are going to get better. I have other friends that are going on the complete opposite direction. Super, super smart individuals, way smarter than I am. And they're hunkering down for 12 months off the grid with, seeds and chickens and all of this stuff. And I went down that route already. And I know that being in that kind of mindset can absolutely backfire as well, because if this does end in 6 weeks and everything gets back to normal, you've just completely shifted your entire life and your entire business a completely different direction that isn't really that important anymore. So
Right.
that awareness, I think, is just key number one.
Yeah, and the thing is, everything that you just described is applicable really to anyone in any circumstance, right? It's like if you had inventory of all of your expenses and having these projections of when they're going to have to be cut off by, then you're also able to say, okay, can we prioritize with the team, right? Like, what are the most important things I've got to keep going? And then also, while you're doing that with your home, with your bills, right? Doing that with even with credit card payments. If worse came to worse, having a late on a credit card is better than other things, right? So it's like that clarity is going to bring a bit more certainty with a plan so that you can stay focused. Because what happens is people get into that stress response, they get into that reactive response. And then that's when really rough decisions start being made, when people panic, because without having access to any information, it's
well, we see that in the
doesn't
stock
go
market
well.
all the time, right? We see people panic selling stocks and panic selling Bitcoin and crypto. And then guess what? A month later, it's back up,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
fall at
And
the
this,
bottom.
yeah, the confirmation bias thing it's a real situation. And anytime someone is certain, completely certain about something, it's very dangerous. Hitler was very certain about the Jews. Look at what that ended up in. We find that a lot of entrepreneurs have that confirmation bias with their health. And it's a place that we work in. People are like, yeah, man, I'm fine. And I'm going to take these supplements, do a couple of biohacking techniques, and nothing's going to happen. And meanwhile, they're very certain about their business and how things are going to go. It's either right or left. There's no wiggle room. And then if the business crashes, the body crashes. The body crashes, the business crashes. It all falls in tandem. So I really like that terminology, confirmation bias. That's very fresh. I like that, man. So I don't mind. I hope you don't mind if I borrow that as we start
No,
swaying forward.
I certainly did not invent it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
It's a pretty great way to reference that. So thank you, man. Thank you for bringing that to the table. And I've been in that space of having my own confirmation bias with things, and letting that stuff go allows the body and the business to actually be flexible to pivot. And I think as entrepreneurs, we need to be able to change with the market and the conditions around the market, whatever our markets are. So
Yeah.
Well, mapping out the considerations, right? Being able to have what the considerations are within the market. I've just found that definitive statements in business, in life, in whatever are going to get you in trouble, because you never have all the information. Even if you think you have all the information, you don't, or the source was biased, right? So it's still coming from someone else's projections or someone else's lens.
That's
So
that's a great, if you don't mind me jumping in, that's a great point,
please.
because I learned this the hard way. Like I learned this. I made a lot of investment decisions with all the money that my business made after 2008 that didn't pan out as expected. And it happened because I was studying a lot of super, super smart people and in the financial industry that were absolutely certain, based on their decades of research and previous experience, that X, Y, and Z was going to happen. And I'm like, these are the smartest people on the planet when it comes to this. I'm betting on their side. And what they were certain about didn't take place. Right.
Right.
So their confirmation bias got in the way of them, and then it passed it on to me, and I adopted it, and then we all lost. And so this is this is coming from a place of experience. And then I'll throw this in there. I've noticed this a lot over the last couple of weeks. A lot of people, especially if you're in a really tight financial situation and you're in essentially a circumstance of scarcity, are projecting that scarcity onto everybody else. And so if you're an entrepreneur and you're a business owner and you're selling a product or service, and if you're in a really tough financial spot, your tendency is going to be, again, to project that scarcity onto everyone else and assume that they are feeling the same way and in the same position. That's just a natural human thing to do. And the challenge with that is if you do that, you're not going to allow your brain or really anything to create the space and the ideas and the opportunities to turn that into money and turn that into sales. Because I can tell you this right now, just because you can't afford to buy something at the moment doesn't mean that that is the case for everybody else. There are a ton of people spending a ton of money every single day right now. They're on Instagram, they're shopping because they're bored out of their mind. They're buying products, they're buying services, and money is being spent and things are being purchased. But if you're projecting that mindset onto everybody else, you're like, man, nobody's buying anything right now because you aren't. You just screwed yourself. Like, you just tied your hands behind your back, and you've just made it 10 times harder for you to get out of that mode and to start making money again. So that's another kind of self-awareness test that I want people to take into consideration. I just want you to know that there's a ton of money, of people with a ton of money. And I like to come up with solutions for rich people. There is always people who are looking to spend money. And so if you can find a way to pivot your services or products to appeal to people who are wealthy, they're making money in this time. Some of them are going to lose money, but a lot of them are making money right now because they're sophisticated investors. They're buying cars on the cheap. They're buying real estate on the cheap. They're buying stocks on the cheap, right? So
Yep.
if you can just figure out how to reposition your offer to appeal to that market, there's more than enough money out there to go around for everybody.
Yeah.
Agreed. And that's something that we actually, that's something that we believed as things started to shift. And then we got confirmation of it the day of. We went out to breakfast with a friend and he was like, I want to come on the whale trip. We're like, cool, we'd love to have you. He was like, cool, I'm down for 2. And this is when everyone else had pulled completely back because they're buying resources, toilet paper, whatever they're stockpiling, more guns, more ammo, whatever they felt like they needed. And it was such a beautiful reminder as soon as this stuff hit that we actually immediately attracted people that were not thrown into the chaos. They were like, oh, okay, here we go. Let me get on this surfboard and, carve. And I can't control the wave. I can control my direction in tandem with the wave. If we're going this way, cool, I'm going to make adjustments. And, some of the services that
quick for an idea. So sorry, keep going, but
please go. Okay. No, listen, anytime Mike Dillard has an idea, everything stops, that's for anyone in the audience. Perfect. And that's what I mean. If Mike Dillard has an idea, it doesn't matter who it's for. Everything pauses for a second. It's important to shift.
Writing it down.
Yes.
Everybody wait.
So, but this is just it. The difference between the people that will come out on the other side 10x what they were before, and all of the launches they had planned the next year that they've been spending the last year preparing for are taking a big sideline, and for some, a complete redirect. But so we call this a condor energy or a puma energy, depending on which phase that you're in. When it's in a condor energy, it's the flexibility to change because you have the freedom of knowing you have everything that you need between your resources, your community resources. And so as you climb in the takeoff, that's the hardest part. But once you get there, then it's soaring. It's longevity, it's long distance. And if people aren't considering their personal health ramifications through this ramp up, getting back to the grind, then 6 months from now, a year from now, it's going to be an adrenal crash of some sort. So that's the other thing to consider. And you have experienced this as well, that drive and having the health crash. I would love for you to share your last experience of that, just to kind of heed any entrepreneurs that are going back into that, put your head down, get the work done, turn this stuff around really quickly.
So a year and a half ago, definitely pushed way too hard for way too many years, took the body for granted, relieved stress with alcohol and queso and Tex-Mex.
Queso does heal many things, even if you're lactose intolerant, sure. Eventually, yes.
So, And I won't get into the details, but that turned into a toxic mold infection and a brain injury that's taken about 1.5 years to heal from. And I'm still healing from that, along with severe adrenal fatigue and insomnia and all kinds of stuff. So at the same time, like, I get it. When you're an entrepreneur in a time like this, and every part of your world depends on you making money, keeping your bills paid and all of that, it's hard not to get into that energy in that space, because you're kind of going to war. And on one hand, I'm like, you got to do what you got to do. Like, if I find myself in that position, I'm going to do what I have to do. Yet at the same time, I'm also going to do whatever I can do to support being in that place, meaning 0 alcohol, 0 sugar, 0 desserts, 0 anything, lots of sleep, and everything else that I can to provide myself with the energy and the stamina that I need to work 12 hours a day if that's what's necessary. So I think folks right now who are essentially drinking this whole situation under the table and binging on Netflix, if you're an entrepreneur, even if you have a job, you don't know if you're going to have that. Again, you don't know how long this is going to last. Maybe it'll be over in a month. Maybe it's going to take 1 year. And this is going to get ridiculously bad, like the Great Depression, right? With food lines and things like that. So if you are a business owner, and if you're just Netflixing out and popping bottles of wine, I think you're in for a really, really, really rude awakening. And you're also missing out on a massive opportunity, because a crisis situation is always a bonding experience for people. And the folks who are going to come out of this on top and 10x their businesses when this is all over, are the people who are showing up and being leaders and serving and just doing whatever they can to help, but essentially going to work. Are they going to be the ones that just crush it? And they're going to be the ones that survive this as well. And if you're not doing that, you're toast. It's there's a great history lesson from the Great Depression, where several companies came out of the Great Depression and essentially did that. They came out and dominated their markets in their industries, like Coca-Cola and things like that. And those companies are the ones that kept advertising throughout the Depression. The ones that went under, or the ones that pulled out on advertising, just decided to sit on the sidelines and wait things out. But Coke, because they kept advertising, took over all of that market share, right? They had a free territory to gain all of it, and they gained that loyalty. And when the markets came back, nobody cared about the competitors anymore. Everybody was drinking Coke. So that's the opportunity that we all have right now in all of our niches and all of our industries. So we're out, like, doing what y'all are with these lives and these interviews, putting out videos, putting out content, serving as leaders for people who need help. And that's just a really, really important strategy for folks today.
And it is an amazing opportunity to bring value, and this is one of the things I honor with how you've always shown up with your programs, your processes, your mentorships, is showing up with value first, right? And then when someone sees the value, it's like, wow, what else is there if this is what
he's giving away? If he's giving away this much value, what else does this guy have? I mean, or just
the resonance. Like, you get to really know someone, and if their messaging and their stuff aligns with you, because there's not one way to do it.
Yeah, man. And again, man, I think it's one of the things I admire about you the most is what you give and how relentlessly and selflessly you give to people, and you care, and there's this caring behind how you operate, which brings that authentic space to the table, and it's just like, look, this is what happened to me. How can I help you? And this is what I have to offer you. And if you want to work with me, cool, come work with me. But this is how you can move from A to B. And there's never any tricky nonsense. It's never any, but wait, there's more, none of that stuff. It's always this full disclosure. And the way we work with people and the things that we encourage is for people to be vulnerable so that you can actually connect. And I see, the way I connect with what you're doing, the way I watch your audience connect with you is something that I learn from all the time. And I draw great inspiration from that, in knowing that what we're doing is on the right path because of the success that you've had. So when I watch what you do, and I watch you carefully, watching what you do and how you do things is really, really awesome, man. And I really appreciate the way you show up it makes me feel safe, and that there are people out in this world that are doing business that actually have their clients' best interest in mind, and not just the clients, but the other people that are rocking alongside them. You're not just trying to get business from everybody. You're looking to actually bolster and support these entrepreneurs in fulfilling their life's dreams, not just how many programs can I sell to these people, and let me get as much money as I can. You have this raw, genuine quality of like, man, I want you to succeed. What can I do for you, bro? I really appreciate that, man.
Thank you.
I'm going to actually piggyback that, because all of the difference of, and what Mike is saying for anyone listening, watching, whatever, is that you might have projected the financial success of 2 years from now that could be here 6 months from now for those that are willing to see opportunity. This could be the fast track, even if it gets a little uncomfortable. Entrepreneurial paths are that way. That's why, for us, when people are like, oh, what will I do for food? I'm like, oh, honey, I've been in such worse situations than this. I can fast for 5 days. This is the least of my concerns, because through our own journey and leaving the jobs that we have, creating our business together, the many evolutions of that to get us to here, where we actually feel like we're finally in our zone. We're really stepping into what is ours. And having people like you creating the value that you do is part of what got us along the way when we couldn't afford coaches before. You know what I mean? I had to do more research and legwork and back end stuff and whatever. But we did that for years where we didn't have a team. We didn't have the money to hire a coach. I think our first coach was $500 a month.
Yeah.
And that was a stretch. You know what I mean? That was our first mentor, and that was a stretch. And now to know that, for us to spend 10 times that on a coach has been because of people like you putting out content that I could grow through and grow with, and do the best that I can. Right. You're not going to master all the things.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, man.
Agreed.
Yeah, bro. I mean, it's phenomenal what you're bringing, and the calm way which you bring it. Like right now, in particular, I've watched some of the videos that you've put out. I've read the emails, and there's this real calm, easy look. This is what I'm giving you. There's no ramp up around what if you fall, what if your business fails, da 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 da. If you don't act now, it's just, hey, look, this is where we are, and this is what you can do. And I really appreciate that demeanor, man, because the nervous system, and we're all about the nervous system, bro.
Yep.
The nervous system being in a calm place allows a person to situate themselves and actually evaluate all the information that you put in front of them, allows them to take what you offer and apply what works for them, and then move and keep it moving, man. I really, really appreciate it.
No,
Seriously.
thank y'all. I think an important lesson that I had to learn going through this health journey, which y'all were a part of my healing process over the last year and a half, losing the ability to think or even leave the couch or work for a year was the single most humbling thing I've ever had to go through. And what that essentially did is it removes any need or desire or expectations around what's actually important and what you need. And so at that point, it radically shifted my, what's the way to put this? Just my perspective on what really matters. And it changed it from, how big is the house or how much money is in the bank account to, is anybody bleeding out in front of me that I care about? No. Okay. Then everything's fine.
Right.
So if you're feeling stressed out right now because you might not be able to pay rent or whatever it may be, okay, that might be the case, and you'll be fine. It'll be uncomfortable, and it'll not meet your expectations of the idea of what you should have and what you should be experiencing and have it from a security standpoint at the moment, and you'll be fine, and you'll get it back. So. Yeah, it's going to be the most important thing that we can all take away from this entire deal is lessons learned. So that's all I'm looking for from going through this is what can we learn from this? What can we take away from this so that the next time something like this happens, we'll be smarter, wiser, more prepared, and, even better off, the next time. So I would highly recommend people are keeping a journal. What did I learn today? Maybe about the confirmation bias piece, maybe about the scarcity projection, But what else can you take away from this? What are you observing in market behavior? What are you observing in customer behavior? What are you figuring out that's working today in this marketing environment? Well, I can tell you now, ad costs have gone down significantly. A lot of people think, they've pulled their plug on their advertising, but guess what? The cost to acquire a lead for us has dropped by 80%. You're missing out on that.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
You're missing out on that. It used to be $10 a lead. Now we're generating leads for $1 to $2. And so I've got friends who are generating literally 2,000 to 3,000 opt-ins a day right now.
Wow.
And so if you just saw scarcity and pulled the plug in your marketing campaigns, you could be making more money than you've ever made, but you don't know that because you jumped to a conclusion. So more lessons to learn, more observations to make.
Yeah. And with those observations, considerations, and, I want to swing back around to the point you made about the journal. Journaling is something that I'm very astute about. And we as human beings have maybe 60, 70,000 thoughts a day. The average person, if you're an entrepreneur who's thinking about a lot of stuff, you got a lot more stuff breezing through. So if something,
plus, depending on what other things you do, it's multidimensional.
I'm saying, so as things come up, like you were saying, the confirmation bias, like I scribble, when you said it, I scribbled it down because I've got all these things flowing through me. I mean, what did Mike say later on? I can't remember it. I can always swing back to my journal and it's there. And it's something that I review at the end of the night and then at the end of the week. And it's always there. I can always swing back to it. But these are things that we don't want to miss as entrepreneurs, as people, period, is when there's something that's important that resonates with us, to write it down so we can swing back to it. So, especially with the way the internet is right now, people are doing tons of lives. There's a lot of information flowing. The things that resonate, write them, just scribble it in a journal, man, and come back at the end of the day, scan it, and then at the end of the week. And this is something that you can put in your calendar. Put this stuff in your calendar. At the end of the night, check your journal. At the end of the week, check the journal. At the end of the month, do a month review and just see what's there, and then really align and lock this stuff in, man. That's an important point. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, and something else just popped in that I think is important to cover. Don't stop selling. Like, there's a lot of people who are doing a lot of free content. We're doing our weekly podcast. Y'all are doing your show. A lot of people who are natural leaders are stepping up and they're providing free guidance and leadership. Do not stop selling. And especially when this first started, the first 2 weeks, there was almost this shame that was spread around. Like, don't you dare sell something right now. How could you?
Yeah, like you're taking advantage of people.
Right. And that is coming from someone who's clearly adopted a victim mentality, and now they're trying to assert, and project that onto everybody else. And so don't stop selling, because you need to take care of your bills. You need to sell your product. If you're selling something valuable, people still need your product. They still want it. They're stuck in a house. If you're in the health and fitness industry right now, you should be making a killing doing at-home workouts or, at-home cooking recipes or whatever it may be. If you're doing financial education of any kind, if you're doing entrepreneurship of any kind, people need to make money. There's going to be people who are literally losing their jobs by the millions, during this, that are going to get fed up and say, you know what, never again. I'm going to start a business and I'm going to go down this path. And so there's tons of opportunity out there. Do not let people shame you into not selling your product, and double down on it. Like, I'll just give everybody my strategy or marketing strategy here and what we're doing. So we're taking free content videos that are, the first one I put out was that 7 steps video, 25 minutes long in front of a whiteboard.
Which was an awesome video.
Yeah. Thank you. So we posted that, but as you know, organic reach is next to nothing. Even if you have a decent following, maybe a few hundred people are going to see it. So we are promoting that ad, and we're spending money every day to promote that as an ad and put it in front of an audience. And because of that promotion, I think it's up to 130,000 people reached or something in the last 10 days. And that's growing by like 10,000, 20,000 people a day. And I'm not selling anything in that video. That's doing one single thing. It's putting me in front of them. I'm giving valuable content to help them that positions myself as a leader. And then we're also going to retarget that audience and everybody who watched that video with an ad in the next week or two with a product that's designed to help entrepreneurs who are going through this experience and need some guidance and help. So that retargeting, ad is going to cost a fraction of what it would previously. So while if we sell $1,000 product, it might have cost us $500 to acquire a customer before this started. Now, maybe it might cost us $100 to $200 to acquire $1,000 customer. And so the only people who are seeing our offer ads are people who we've already given goodwill to. We've already given free content to. We've given for free. We're going to continue to give for free. We're going to produce and put out a new free video like that every single week. And then we're also going to say, hey, we have something that's really valuable that can help you right now for sale. And that's just how we're approaching this whole situation.
I love it.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. And that is something that we are working on applying as we speak.
Yeah.
So before we kind of bring this to a close, because we've covered a ton and I feel really complete in everything that's been covered, is there anything else for someone watching, Mike, that is, watching the videos or they're not sure where to go? And of course, leave your website or, the best place for them to hit. I'll put it in the notes as well. But any other kind of thoughts or direction or things to consider that if someone was looking at themselves in the mirror, maybe it's a mindset thing right now, because business strategy they can follow you for. But if someone was going to look at themselves in the mirror, since this is mentor in the mirror, what could you invite for them to explore for themselves?
I would sit down and write down your assumptions about what's taking place and your feelings about what's taking place, meaning, and just be brutally honest with yourself and literally don't judge it. Just write down what comes out. But for a lot of people, it's going to be things like, this is horrible. This is scary. My business is dying. I'm running out of money. People don't have any money to buy things with. What if somebody gets sick? What if somebody I know dies? Something along those lines, right? Because that's what people are seeing and being fed 1,000 times a day through the media right now. Yeah. You're going to get what you look for. Your brain is built to do that. Your brain is built to find what it is that you're looking for. And so if you're telling yourself these things, that's what you're going to find. You're going to find scarcity and poverty and pain and all of this stuff. So just be honest and write that down and see what it is that you're telling yourself. And then ask yourself if that's going to serve you and really help you get to where you want to go and to get you in a place where you want to be. And if it's not, then your number one job above anything else is to retrain your dialogue. So then I would start to write down, what do you want to experience? What do you want to see? What do you want to have happen? What do you want your beliefs to be? My beliefs are that the bigger this crisis gets, the bigger the opportunity it is. I believe that a ton of people have a ton of money to spend right now. I believe that I can create a product and a service that would be of extreme value to folks that can help a lot of people and that they'd be willing to spend money on. I believe that no matter how long this happens, we're all going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. And I believe that I'm going to learn some unbelievably valuable lessons from this experience that are going to benefit me for the rest of my life. So that's what I wake up and how I think about this every single day. And that's a conscious choice. And that conscious choice is executed in the fact that I ignore anything negative on the news. I only spend a very brief amount of time on Facebook. If I have people in my friends feeds who are constantly posting stuff about the virus or arguing or the news or whatever, I just put them on mute, or I unfriend, or I just block that out of my space. And then I get to work, because the single best thing that anyone can do is to create momentum, and you create momentum by taking action. And so for me, I've gotten more done in the last 3 weeks than I have in the last 3 months. And it's been super fun and energizing and awesome. And so I think that would be my final piece of advice.
That's huge. Because just this one last thing, let me unload everything that will change your life.
That was awesome, man. We so appreciate you, Mike, man. Thank you so much for all that you've endured to get you to where you are. all of the shitty stuff and all of the awesome stuff. And thank you for all that you put out into the world.
And all that you support with us so that we can bring our, all of our stuff out to the world.
Yeah, thank you, man. We really appreciate and feel the love and the way you honor us, man. Thank you so much for that. And we're down for you, bro. We're down for the get down.
Likewise. Likewise.
Team Mike D.
So so let the people know where they can find you and what to look for.
Just MikeDillard.com is great. We've got our podcast where we put out every week there, and we've got a little survey folks can fill out that will essentially tell us what you need help with and where you're at. And if we have some resources that will benefit you, we'll send them to you. So that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
Epic. Well, in the spirit. Absolutely. I mean, anytime we get to spend time with you, we are thrilled. And in the spirit of doing what Mike Dillard says, I have provided this wonderful text. So anyone that's looking for more of these conversations that are at no cost, that are for digging into some of these concepts, some of these conditionings that create patterns that might be in your way, you can text optimize, the word optimize, to 22999. And there's going to be some new stuff coming there. The reason we are having you go to text is because we can update you much quicker as we shift some things around. So thank you again so much, Mike, for coming on the show and for everything that you're sharing. And we can't wait to come squeeze you. And if someone's in your pool late at night, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's getting warm now. We're gonna have to go quarantine on the boat, hopefully in an
right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We'll just we'll wear the JP Sears hazmat suit on the boat.
So everybody out there who's listening, we know you love this. Rate, review, subscribe, share it with a friend. Until next time, my name is Ta.
My name is Cole.
We are Ta Cole. This is Mentor in the Mirror.
Be free.